All right, folks, if you thought politics in Malawi was already spicy enough, imagine this. The newly elected Blantyre Mayor Jomo Osman walks into Times TV, and sitting right across from him is none other than the man with a journalism spine made of steel, Brian Banda. This isn't a conversation, it's a pressure cooker with microphones. Today we're diving into what would happen if these two collided live on air, based on their real personalities, controversies, and reputations. Trust me, this hypothetical breakdown is going to hit harder than a breaking news siren in the middle of the night. If Jomo Osman and Brian Banda ever found themselves seated across from each other on Times TV, the atmosphere would be thick enough to slice with a studio light. You've got Jomo, newly elected Blantyre mayor, walking in with confidence, charisma, and a street-smart political appeal. On the other side sits Brian Banda, a seasoned media bulldog known for pressing questions until the truth sweats. From the moment the cameras turn red, you can practically feel the tension buzzing like a faulty transformer. Jomo would start with calm, diplomatic vibes. Brian would open the show with that trademark smile that says, "Prepare yourself because I'm about to drill deeper than a mining company." And that's the precise moment viewers at home would pull their chairs closer. But that's only the ignition spark. Wait until the qualifications question hits the room. Brian Banda wouldn't waste a second diving into the controversy that has Malawi talking, Jomo openly admitting he has no academic qualifications. Brian would lean back, raise an eyebrow, and drop the inevitable question. How do you lead a major city with no formal education? Boom. That's the political grenade. Jomo, defensive yet composed, might respond with a story about real-life experience, street wisdom, and leadership through action rather than certificates. And sure, those arguments hold emotional weight. But Brian's follow-up? If education isn't necessary, then why do we push our kids to school? The studio would go silent for a split second. That's when the viewers feel the shockwave. And if you think this is explosive, wait until Brian pivots to Jomo's past legal controversies. Any journalist worth their salt, and Brian definitely is, would bring up the infamous 2019 police allegation that Jomo once broke into a legislator's house and stole property. It's the kind of topic most politicians hope stays buried. Brian would bring it up politely at first, then sharpen the edge. Mayor Osman, should the people of Blantyre trust someone once accused of breaking into a home? Jomo would likely counter with political persecution claims, legal dismissals, the whole "I was targeted" angle that many Malawians have heard from multiple politicians. Regardless of who's right, the interview tension would thicken like a heavy fog. And just when Jomo tries to breathe, the conversation swings right into the election controversy.
Brian wouldn't hold back. He'd dig into the elephant wandering in the political living room. Jomo winning the mayoral seat despite his controversies. The question would sound something like, was this a victory of popularity, party strategy, or something else behind the scenes? Jomo might highlight grassroots support, community respect, and years of local influence. But Brian, ever the master of poking holes, would ask whether internal party maneuvering or faction loyalty played a bigger role than policy. The audience at home, they'd be glued to their screens the way people watch a football penalty shootout. But buckle up, because that's when Brian would touch the hottest subject of all, corruption perception. Regardless of innocence or guilt, Jomo's name has been whispered in circles connected to wrongdoing. Brian would lean in, lower his voice, and ask, "Mr. Mayor, how do you plan to clean up Blantyre when some people believe you need cleaning yourself?" Ouch, you could practically hear half of Blantyre inhale. Jomo would push back hard, emphasizing transparency, new policies, and a fresh start. But Brian wouldn't let go. Are you ready to be audited? Fully? This is the moment where sweat becomes a supporting character in the interview. And here's where the interview shifts from personal history to real-time leadership issues. Brian would then hit Jomo with the cold, hard truth. Blantyre's roads are a mess. Markets are chaotic. Garbage collection, inconsistent at best. So, Mr. Mayor, what's your big plan? Jomo would likely detail his community-first approach, emphasize teamwork, and mention improved collaboration with the city council. He might even throw in, "I know the people, I walk their streets." But Brian, never satisfied with speeches, would demand timelines, specifics, and numbers. And we all know Malawi's politicians fear numbers like people feared tax season. And if Jomo hoped the conversation would cool off, Brian switches gears and heats it right back up. Then comes the twist. Brian himself has controversy. He once resigned from Times TV under pressure. So he'd ask, "People questioned my comeback, but many question your rise. What do you say to that?" It turns from interrogation to mirror moment. Jomo might say, "Everyone deserves a second chance." Brian might smirk. Agreement or irony, nobody can tell. But it's sharp, dramatic, and riveting television. And now it gets spicy, because Brian would dive into the politics under the politics.
Brian would zero in on Malawi's party dynamics. Who's really pulling strings in Blantyre? Are you independent or are you owned by factions? This is where political interviews get dangerous. Jomo's answer could shape alliances or destroy them. He'd emphasize loyalty to the people, not parties. Brian would smile knowingly, the smile of someone who has interviewed enough politicians to know that everyone says that. Viewers at home, taking notes. And right when the political firestorm seems to cool, Brian throws in a socio-economic punch. Brian brings it home. People can't afford fuel. Youth lack jobs. Markets are dirty. Roads are failing. What will you fix first? Now Jomo has to put real promises on the record. No slogans, no polite waves, actual commitments. He might outline development projects, urban renewal, a push for investment, changes in market management. But Brian will demand priorities. Which one comes first? And that's where many politicians freeze, because priorities expose what you stand for. And finally, the closing blow. Brian wraps the interview with the question every viewer wants. If you failed to deliver, should Blantyre fire you in 2025? That's the knockout punch. Jomo can either say yes and earn respect, or dodge it and take the hit. Either way, it's the climax of the interview. The music could fade, the lights could dim, the viewers could exhale, because what we just watched wasn't an interview, it was a democratic stress test. And with that, here's what you need to do next. If you loved this bold, high-energy breakdown of what a real Jomo Banda face-off would look like, smash that subscribe button on @GlobalPulseNews, tap that notification bell, and drop your thoughts in the comments. And hey, show love to our sister channels for kids learning and entertainment, @SparklingKids and @Ram Fatima. Let's grow, learn, and elevate together as one digital family.